Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I am with Liz Trotter, and this is Smart Business Moves. Good afternoon, Liz. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. I'm better now that you're telling me jokes right before we go live.
Jokes that we'll just keep to ourselves.
Yeah. It was good, though. It was good. Looking forward to last day of our week here, and I'm looking forward to the topic. And we haven't really told anybody what we're planning on doing on Thursdays. Tom, do you think we should talk about that at all today?
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Maybe this will be a good intro. We can talk about what we're going to be doing next week in total and drill into Thursdays a little bit.
That's a good idea. Oh my gosh, Amy! High five, Amy! Hold it back. Oh my gosh! First thing out of her mouth, right? I love it. I said,
Go ahead and share the story, Liz. Give her the backstory.
"What? Which story?"
No. About the brows. The brows.
About the eyebrows. Just that yesterday. That's the only thing. Is yesterday when Amy was on, we were giving Tom grief about his eyebrows, and now he's went and had them done.
I had mine done today. I did.
Yeah, but you had your whole hair done to sort of cover up the fact that you were going in to get your eyebrows done. Good job, Tom. Because most people would probably think you went in to get your hair done and just got an eyebrow trim, but we all know better.
Yeah, the whole thing, mani-pedi, the whole deal.
That's right. Yeah, still no lipstick, Amy says, though.
It's a process. You got to work your way up.
Getting closer to Christmas, right? A little bit. Please get Angela Brown. Oh, we do. We have had Angela Brown on. We love her. Yeah, she's amazing. We need to get Angela to do a deal day, too.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Pam also says, "Good job, Tom." Tom, I'm surprised at how crazy your eyebrows were that everybody's commenting on them.
Well, I was aware of that. Now every once in a while I found myself kind of trying to beat them back, and I sometimes I do it myself. But I knew that had this appointment scheduled, and I didn't want to cheat.
Yes, don't want to cheat her out of the joy of doing.
That's the whole highlight. That's
Tom, I really don't think you understand how I don't know what they're called right now. Oh, what are they called? That hairstylist. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's the correct term. I don't think you understand how a hairstylist gets her joy in life.
You're right. I know. Maybe I should ask. Maybe I'm just making assumptions.
Yeah.
Although when it got to that point, I did tell her that I left and waited, for her to do this, and she pretended to be excited. I don't know. Maybe that's to get
I'm so excited. Thank you. That's awesome. I do love that.
Okay. So what are we doing next week, Liz?
I just have one more question. Did you get your ears trimmed also?
No, they don't do that. I kind of have to do that myself, actually.
I was totally kidding.
Why did I miss something? There's hair all over the place that we should probably change.
Yeah, we're going to change the topic now, y'all. If you have hairy ears, I don't want to see them, and I don't want.
Maybe next week or so, I can bring all my equipment and we can make a show out of that.
No, we're not doing that, Tom.
Okay.
Hey, Marlo, be glad you just are getting on there.
Yeah. You guys are enjoying this now.
You missed some of the bad conversation we were having. All right, Tom, tell us what we got going on next week.
Well, Sharon Timberg's going to be joining us on Monday, and we're looking forward to this. We've, been working to get Sharon on for a while, and I guess there's several challenges. She's busy, and she's got a lot of things going on, and she lives in the country somewhere in Texas, and sometimes her internet doesn't work well, but she's got an internet provider. We actually did a test spin. We were talking to Sharon 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. She just got a brand new roof on her place, too. That was, you guys know how that is when you're getting some kind of big construction done like that. It's not the easiest to be, getting on something like a Facebook Live. So, yay, we're glad she's done with it. It's great talking to her today. We could not get, we kept going back and forth with the volume with her. Couldn't hear, and Sharon, if she's in a good mood, she's in a good mood. She's laughing hard. She had me laughing hard. All right. Sorry, Tom.
No worries. So
I'm
live,
still
live
laughing.
is going to be Tuesday?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, takes a while. All right. Okay. And then Tuesday. Oh, okay. So Tuesday, we're going to have Alonzo on. And I don't know if he's going to be doing annual planning basics. I didn't confirm with him exactly what he's going to be doing, but he's going to talk to us about his annual planning, all of his goal setting sessions, and the different tools that he uses. So I'm excited about that.
It doesn't matter what Alonzo does. It's going to be really good.
It's true. Yeah. He's always really.
I'd listen to him read the phone book for an hour.
Okay, I would not listen to him read the phone book for an hour, but if he ever wants to do that, I got your number, Tom.
Okay, well, it would be good. I promise you. He would do a good job. He would rock it.
All right, on deal day, who we got on deal day? Oh, we can't tell, can we?
We can't tell. You got to tune in next Wednesday, but we've got several people. Some you've known before. Others are going to be new. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah, good.
And so, Deal Day is an opportunity to be introduced to products and services that you use in your house cleaning business, and it's packaged in a way where you get extra value, where they throw in a bunch of other stuff at a price that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. This is only something that you can get through Smart Business Moves, but the deal is only good for 48 hours. That's the catch. So you have to move quick. But oftentimes it's stuff that you would be buying anyway, and it just makes more sense to take advantage of the extra value you get through Deal Day.
I'm not sure that one of our deal days has gone by without me buying something. Maybe we need to stop doing deal day and I can save some money. So I can be more profitable, which we're going to talk a little bit about.
We're going to be talking about that. But, if you're taking advantage of Deal Day in a strategic way, you will be more profitable.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to be talking about more KPI stuff next week. So you want to talk about Thursdays moving forward, Tom, or?
Yeah, for the next several weeks anyway. And, we get to 2021, who knows what crazy ideas we're going to come up with. But between now and the end of the year, we need to get ready for 2021. And we talk a lot about, the importance of knowing your numbers and, managing your business based on KPIs. But there's a whole lot to that. And a lot of times I think that we gloss over the important parts of, there's no such thing as house cleaning jeopardy, where, what's your payroll percent to revenue? Well, 52%,
So for those of you that just right now were like, oh no, it's going to be one of those kind of calls. Don't panic. It's okay. It was just one little tiny word and one little tiny thing he was talking about. He's got a whole story here. I promise. Don't get afraid.
It's completely opposite of that. We're gonna talk about the business case and the things that go on in our business in terms of customers and employees and training and just the general mechanics that we can all relate to, and talk about scenarios. And it's like, what kind of outcome do you want? At the end of the month, do you want, more money in the bank than you started off with at the beginning of the month, or no? And most of us will say, sure. And it's like, well, let's talk about how all of that works. So it's going to be a slower approach to this than we've ever taken before. And I'm excited because even knowing the numbers and knowing the calculations really just is where it starts. The big thing is how you run your business, right, Liz?
Yep, absolutely. Tom, maybe now would be a really good time for you to give your Christmas example. I love that. When you pitched it to me today, I was like, ooh, that's good. For those people out there that are thinking, how does this work? Always talking about money. And on Thursdays, we're going to be like hammering hard on having more money in your pockets and having more money at the end of every month. And for anybody that's feeling like, it doesn't need to just be all about profits. There's more to a business than just that. I love what you said today, Tom.
Well, I hope I remember what I said. I do that a lot. No, I'm
How
just.
about It's a Wonderful Life?
I
Remember?
know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Have we let everybody know that cleaning business builders? I guess we've had some branding changes, and we were doing it as Castle Keepers Institute for a while, but recently we've come to this deeper understanding of what really builds value for not only the business and money in the bank, but for the people that work for us and the people we serve is profit. And everything good that we do with our business and all the good outcomes we have, profit is a part of it. And a lot of times when we're not having a good day or we're miserable or hating our business, it's a pretty good chance that lack of profit is a contributing factor to that. So we're going to be, Liz and I are going to be doing programs a lot more focused on profit. And some of it's the same stuff that we've always done in the past in terms of, how you measure and KPIs and systems and processes and employee engagement and building a team, accountability, but all focusing more back on the end game of profit. And I think it's going to be a lot more useful.
Okay, I've been pushing Tom to do this for how long, Tom? How many years have I been pushing you to be talking more about this?
Probably 8, I'm guessing.
It's a few, because I don't know anybody that has a better grasp on all of these different concepts. And you also have, I know it doesn't seem like it to everybody, that people that don't know you, but you really have a ton of patience for teaching and helping people to comprehend things. And so I've really been wanting Tom to, hey, Linda, talk with everybody about profit, because I think it's it's almost like a dirty word. Like, how can profit be a dirty word? But it's not so much that it's a dirty word. It's just people are afraid to talk about profit because they don't know how to measure it. They don't know exactly what their profit is sitting at. They don't know exactly all of the stuff around profit. So it's just such an unknown that it feels kind of scary. And so it's kind of taboo. And also this idea of profit being a bad thing, which I'm going to have Tom share his little thing around, a little story. It's a Wonderful Life.
Is profit good or bad? You remember this movie, Liz?
I do. I watch this movie every year. I just actually saw it last night. Pop, I think it was on Netflix or something. I was like, oh, I can't wait. Yes, I love this movie. It's so good.
So Old Man Potter, I guess he owns the local bank, and he builds really bad homes and charges a lot of money for them, and basically just rips people off and tries to jam as much money as he can in his pocket, right?
Yep. Takes advantage of everybody.
Everybody's kind of afraid of him, but nobody likes him. He's kind of like the bad guy. Everybody kind of hates him in town, right?
Mm-hmm. Even if he wasn't crabby, I think people would still hate him because he's not about anything other than himself, right? Maybe like the original narcissist.
But he made a lot of money. He made profit, right? I mean, money was not a problem for him.
No.
And the whole George Bailey, side of it, he, I guess, through circumstances, wound up taking over the family-owned local community bank, and it was a struggle, and they got into trouble, and basically were going bankrupt, lack of profit, right?
Right.
But I guess through some circumstances, the community kind of rallied around and helped them, and they got back on their feet. And, George Bailey has a bank that helped people, get into better homes and improve the quality of their life and made good jobs for people. But all of that happened because of profit.
Yeah.
So I guess profit can be good or bad depending upon the circumstances and what is being done with the profit. Does that
Yeah,
sound?
and I'm going to argue that profit itself is not good or bad. It's the people that have the profit. So, if you're in Texas, you're probably thinking, yeah, sounds like the gun thing. Are guns bad or are people bad? So we're not going there, y'all. But I mean, I think that most of us, and for sure everybody that I'm seeing today on this Facebook Live, would agree with us that we would rather have profit and be able to be responsible with our profit than to not have profit. And I might even argue that how Old Man Potter got to be the way that he was is because at some point in time, there was no profit, and he was scrounging and holding on so tight and afraid and scared to the point that he started hoarding profit to the point that he couldn't see anything other than profit. And that's not what we're talking about at all.
But the world that we live in, things are changing, and the world is certainly changing. There's this concept on Wall Street, ESG businesses, standing for environmental, social, and governance. And there's like a lot of investor capital, mutual funds, a lot of money is being funneled towards companies that are focusing on the environment, or focusing on social issues, or focusing on governance in terms of everything that's implied with transparency and having diversity on the board and throughout the organization, and all of that's good stuff, but none of that happens without profit either, right?
Absolutely. For those of you that are like me, that were like, what are ESG companies? I was like, wow, it's interesting. Makes sense that it's happening, but I had never heard of it. Tom's always at the front of this kind of stuff and keeps me informed, thankfully. You were the one that first told me about Plan B companies also, Tom, which I think probably falls into this NG.
Yeah, it does. Actually, Plan B has been out there for a longer time in terms of, smaller business. Everybody can kind of participate in that, but to make sure that you're basically, those are that was what ESG was before ES&G.
Yeah, that's Plan B.
But, the younger population, we've talked about millennials and stuff like that. That's where they're putting their money. A lot of people out there will not put money in an oil company. That's not, politically correct. And I'm not making any judgment on any of that. All I'm saying is nothing good can happen regardless of where you are on the spectrum without profit. So profit is good.
And that we really want everybody to start thinking more in terms of profit. There's something that I say quite a lot. I know a lot of you have heard me say this. Some of you have actually reached out to me about it, but a lot of companies are going quietly bankrupt and they don't even know it, because the way our businesses cash flow, we have cash coming in, but without profit at some point in time, it's going to catch up to you, and you're going to have more bills than money. And
what's made that worse, or a little more problematic, potentially, scary, is everything that's happened with COVID and with PPP funds and idle loans. There's a lot of companies out there that have money in the bank, maybe more money in the bank than they've had in a good while, but that amount of money could wind up being less each month than it was the month before. And there's that old saying, if you ask somebody, how did you go broke? And the answer is, well, slow at first and then very fast at the end. If you've ever been in a situation where you were burning cash, it's not it doesn't feel like a terribly big deal as long as there's money in the bank. Because when you get to the point where you don't know how you're making payroll next week, that becomes a really big deal.
Or when you can't figure out how to make payroll this week. I talked to somebody I guess it's about a month ago now, that didn't know how they were going to make payroll on Friday, and we were talking on Wednesday. It's pretty scary position to be in. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. And, it doesn't mean that, there's a magic wand you can wave to make all that go away. But part of what we want to be doing here with these types of discussions is to help people have a better understanding of how the numbers work, how the monies work, how we do things within our business day in and day out that contribute to all of that. So we're getting the outcomes that we want. Not so you can be Mr. Potter and just, jam a lot of money in your pocket at the expense of other people. But if you're making profit, you have the opportunity to create better jobs. You have the opportunity to provide better service. You have the opportunity to build more value in your business. All those wonderful things that can happen for not only you, but everybody else that counts on you and your business.
Everybody around you and your family too. Yeah. Oh, was that me? Got a weird little feedback going on there for a second.
So let's talk about numbers for just a little bit. And I borrowed these numbers. These aren't my numbers. These are, well, I guess they're public domain, but this is a program that you've been using these numbers, I guess, for over the last year or so. You want to talk a little bit about these metrics?
Okay, so y'all, I did not know. I haven't seen this slide, any of these slides here. So I'm looking at this, reading MMA Key Performance Indicators. Wow, that's just like our MMA program. Good job, Tom. Good job. I wonder where you got that. Yeah, so Linda, these probably look familiar to you. Hey, Judith, these probably look familiar. So these are the 5 KPIs that we track. We have a lot of different metrics that are available for tracking in the workbook in Mastermind Accountability Groups. But these 5 key performance indicators we track all the time. I'll tell you guys an inside secret right now that nobody knows actually, unless they've gone into the program. When somebody is signing up for the program, I ask them just 2 little numbers. And if they know the answer to the numbers, then I ask them what their revenue is. And I ask them what their net profit is. If they know the answer to those 2 questions, I tell them, okay, great. Well, then on your workbook, you only have to track your numbers weekly or even monthly. You could track either one you want. If they don't know the answer, they're given a daily workbook. And some of you on this call have daily workbooks. Now you know why you have a daily workbook, because they didn't know the answer to the question. Because you have to know what these numbers are, and not just know them, but understand them. Understand where is this money coming from? How, what makes net profit? Why people talk about revenue and they throw around these numbers, and it's just like a blob in my head. Numbers. You need to have an understanding of what are your revenue numbers? Where are they? Payroll percent to revenue. Tom, we worked together for at least 2 years. When I would say, Tom, what is it again? What's the term? He'd say, Liz, payroll percent to revenue. I could not remember this phrase to save my soul. I knew what PPR was, and I still call it PPR. But could I remember how to say it? No. But is it important to know to say payroll percent to revenue? No, not so much. But you need to know what your payroll percent to revenue is. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. Tom's going to help us through all of these things. The next one is cleaning professionals. And then the last one that we have on here is customers. We want to know how many cleaning professionals we have, because you've all heard, right? We have too many, we have too few. We have too many, we have too few. So you need to be tracking that so that you can get this nice baseline where you're not in that crazy cycle of too many, too few, too many, too few. And then customers, a lot of times if people aren't tracking their customers, they can't even, they won't recognize that they're losing customers, that they're losing their customer base. And we track customers in a few different ways, but these are our 5 basic numbers that we look at. Some people daily, some people weekly, some people monthly.
So we've got these numbers, but I know you guys also track a bunch of other numbers.
So all of these other numbers, right? So these are all a lot of different types of metrics that we have available for tracking for sure. But these are not the key performance indicators, right? These are things that can help you when you're struggling. For example, let's say you start to notice in your company, like, I don't understand what's up with our revenue. We haven't really lost any clients, but our revenue is taking a hit. You have to kind of figure out what that is. You might notice that, I wonder, it seems like we are having a lot of customers that are skipping their cleanings for some reason, maybe over the summer. So you might decide to start tracking that skip loss rate for a month or maybe 2 months or however long. Who do we know? We just had somebody on the show recently, Tom. Do you remember that said they had lost like $13,000 in skips over the summer? Who was that?
I don't remember. It may have been me. I don't know.
And it wasn't COVID losses, you guys. These are just people skipping because of, or maybe it was some COVID stuff, but there was a lot of just skipping because, I'm going on vacation. And sometimes it'll happen. You notice that, right? Where a lot of your clients are skipping. Troy and I had this conversation not too long ago. Was it around Charleston or Atlanta? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But around one of the branches was really struggling because customers are skipping it clean. If you have a bi-weekly customer and they skip and they go to quad, every 4 weeks, you lose all that revenue. If they do it every other time, you're losing a chunk of money and your people are probably spending more time. I had a lot of cancellations the last weeks because of COVID. Us too, Linda, we've had a lot of people holding right now or skipping one clean or holding for 1 or 2 cleans. Yeah, it's a thing. So that's what those are, Tom. Those are just other numbers that we track as necessary.
So if we know these numbers, then we're going to be profitable. Our job's going to be easy. Running our business is easy at that point, right?
Running our business is easy, but doesn't mean you're going to be profitable just because you know the numbers. But what I can tell you this, that of all of the people that are in our MMA groups, all of the people that track their numbers are profitable. All of them. Not all of the people that don't track their numbers are profitable.
But it's not because, if they're on House Cleaning Jeopardy and if they're able to answer the questions right, knowing the numbers is necessary, but that's just kind of the beginning. I guess is the part, and we've spent in some programs, we spent a lot of time explaining how to do all the calculations, and people get to the point where I can build a spreadsheet and do the numbers, but not put them to work. There's a whole nother part of this that really is necessary as well in terms of building an organization and the culture and getting the engagement and making sure that the right people in the organization know what the goal, using these numbers to create goals, and then having the measurement and feedback and accountability and recognition that goes with using these numbers to drive the results that you need.
Well, I totally agree with you, Tom. 100% I agree with you that there's a whole nother thing, but I really believe that it has to start here. Because if you start doing all of the other stuff before doing this, your numbers are going to be so out of whack and you're not going to know why. And you could be working so many hours, doing so much work, and the wrong thing.
I agree completely. I've seen people I've seen us make the mistake though, where some people fall into the trap of, look at this spreadsheet, I've got all my numbers, but it's stopped, and that's the end of it, in which case nothing changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
100%. You can know your numbers and still go broke if you don't do anything with them.
And that's why when we ask people the question when they're coming into group, right? If you know the answer, it doesn't mean you don't have to track. It just means you can track weekly or monthly. You don't have to track daily. But if you don't know the answers, you need to track daily until we get you on board with understanding these numbers.
So I want to talk about this model here a little bit. And again, this is kind of at a high level, and we'll have a couple more slides that kind of drill in this a little bit. But I think that this is at the heart of what everything else that we're going to be talking about in terms of knowing what your numbers are. There's 4 basic processes, not even processes, there's steps in the cascade that take revenue, which is the money your customers give you, until it gets down to the bottom here where you've got this thing called net profit, called profit. And we're saying that profit is the most important KPI. So how do you manage everything that's going on in your business from revenue? And if you think about revenue, there's a ton of different measurements, KPIs that you can track that all contribute to revenue, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a long list. What, how many leads, conversion rates, how many of those are turning into recurring customers, customer attrition rate. We could probably sit here and brainstorm for the next half hour and come up with a list of 50 viable KPIs, just all focusing on revenue, right?
Yeah. Lauren, Tom's going to put all of these slides into the resource page. He'll show you exactly where those are at the end, and he'll drop a link in here too. So don't worry, you'll get everything. Yep. So I'm gonna interrupt. So I know that a lot of you are like, oh, I know all of these terms. It's so easy. I know what revenue is. I know what COGS are. But there are a lot of people that struggle with the words. They weren't maybe raised around a lot of talk around money. And so sometimes there's a thing that goes on in their brain that's almost like for people that are learning a second language, because it really is it's a money language. It's a financial language. And so they have to stop and do a little thing, a little switch. Okay, so revenue, what is that again? So it's important to learn the right words so that you can speak about them and you can understand them and you can make them real in your business. But I want to try and make sure that everybody understands exactly what it is that we're talking about. I love what you said, Tom, about revenue. Revenue, the easy way of saying revenue is the way of understanding that. If we were talking to somebody who had never heard that term before, that's the money that people give you. It's the money that you actually get. It's not how much you charge. It's not how much your invoice is for. It's not your price per hour. It's how much money you actually get from other people.
From your client. The people that are paying you to clean their home, the money they're paying you is revenue.
Yeah.
And where we're going with this.
Once they pay you. It's not revenue until they give it to you.
And where we're going with this is, you can answer a multiple choice question correctly about revenue, and you got the definition right, but you want to get to the point. We want you to get to the point. We want to help us all get to the point where you're able to see this in your business. So when you see activities going on, when the phone rings and somebody in your office is giving a quote, you're thinking about, well, what does that mean to that revenue box? Because that's what's happening. And if something happens and Mrs. Jones calls up and says, hey, don't clean my home today because it's not that dirty, you need to think about, well, what does that really mean in terms of revenue, and how does that cascade into these other things that are happening? So that's the difference between knowing what the number is and seeing it in a way where you can make, decisions, and the people in your organization, more importantly, can make the right decisions and choices and do the things that are going to equate to the outcome you're looking for, which is the profit.
Profit, right. So one more little tiniest piece around that. When we're talking about revenue, when a company is really small, they really pay attention to the revenue, because every dollar really, really counts. But then you get to a certain place where people start saying things like, oh, it's only $100. No big deal in the overall scheme of things. I'm fine. But revenue, you need to be thinking in terms of all of the pennies matter, and what Tom's going to show us right here is how those dollars matter and how sometimes it can literally be the difference of $1 of whether or not you're making a profit. And you got to get past that spot. So we're going to talk about that too, because when you're talking about net profit, all the revenue matters, all of the dollars. You want to get them all so that at the end, you can decide what you're going to do with the net profit. You don't want to be making the decision about revenue dollars. You want to be making it down there at the net profit line. So you need all the revenue dollars you can get. Now, there's more to that, but I just want to make sure that that point is heard.
Yeah. You can have a lot of money up here in revenue and not have any money all down here, profit, have a negative number here, not even have enough to cover your other expenses. And that's, I guess, what you would call going broke, right?
Yeah.
You're, I guess, technically what they call insolvent. So cost of goods sold, let's talk about that a little bit. All this revenue that you generate, right? So you got this pot of money, people paid you to clean their homes today. What are you going to do with that money? Well, the first thing you do with that money is what? Pay the people who clean the homes for you, right?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this graph a little bit like detailed. So what you're seeing here is all those revenue dollars, they're all traveling down that arrow and they're going to land in that box, and now other stuff's going to come out of it, okay?
Every one of these dollars trickles down into this box.
Yeah, they're all there now. Once they go there, okay, there they are. Now more stuff is going to come out of those revenue dollars. So that's how this is working. For those of you that are not, that flow charts and stuff don't make a whole ton of sense, I'm one of those people. It's just like the bar graphs too. I'm like, all right.
So
all right, Tom.
Roughly, I'm going to say roughly, very roughly, half of those dollars stay in this box to pay the people who clean the homes for you that day. Mm-hmm. So half would be what, 50%?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes it can be 40% or less than 40%. Sometimes it can be in the 30s. Sometimes it's 60 or 70%.
80%, 90%. Tom, we had cost of goods sold one time at one of our branches of over 100%, which meant we had to add money to that box from somewhere out here.
And if you're having to add money to this box, that's a very, very bad position to be in.
That's something you have to get fixed on that day. You can't wait till tomorrow.
So what's happening in this box, they call that cost of goods sold. And we got in here parentheses, it varies as a percent of the revenue. The logic is that for every home you clean, you're going to get some money for it. But for every home you clean, you're going to have to pay somebody to clean it. So as your revenue goes up, your cost of goods goes up at the same time. In that proportion, that ratio is typically close to being the same.
Okay, so I'm gonna break that down a little bit for people. So this term, cost of goods sold, it's very common phrase, COGS. People will say it all the time. But if you're not familiar with financial language, it doesn't really make sense because we don't sell goods. It doesn't feel like we have goods to sell. So how does this impact us? What does this mean? So what this really means is it's the cost to your business of all of the, when I'm training, my cogs are higher.
I love what she's saying. I mean, she's kind of moving, she's getting, she's further along in the story than where we are, but,
yeah,
that's really true. That's hugely true. That's real.
Yeah, we love anybody that understands about training too. Training is such a, well, we'll be talking about that with Sharon next week too. Okay, so cost of goods sold is all the money that you're paying out to the people that are actually providing the service. So your cleaners, the people that are out in the field, that's your cost of goods sold money, are those funds. Now, sometimes people are going to talk about COGS and they will say loaded or unloaded, right, Tom?
Yep.
What do they mean by loaded or unloaded?
Well, for every dollar that you pay somebody in wages, you pay as an employer, you have to pay Social Security and other payroll related taxes. And that's typically a percentage of the amount of money that you're paying out. In addition, you've got insurance. Workers' compensation insurance is typically the biggest one, which again is a percentage of the wages you pay out. So we're going to show you an example here.
So what that means is you're paying a certain amount of money. Let's say you're paying out, easy numbers here, easy math, right? You're paying out $100. So if you're going to pay a percentage of the amount that you pay off or paying out, if you're paying 10%, let's say that was your workers' comp price is 10%, then you would have to pay how much? Anybody? What would you pay off that? Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
110.
There you go. So it would be $110, right?
So
So that would be loaded.
So when you throw workers' comp and your taxes and everything else in, it can be 15, 20%. You live in some states like California, sorry, Leslie, that have very high workers' comp rates. It'll be more than that. But the point is, it's a percentage. So if you're paying somebody $100, you know that you really are spending 120 because you got taxes, insurance, and other stuff down the road that you're going to be paying on that.
And so we'll talk about how that all ties in a little bit, but make sure that you remember that. And I love what Denise says here. Yes, COGS equals the cost of the service provided. Yeah.
The variable cost, correct.
Yeah, the variable cost. Yeah.
So
let's hit that real quick, Tom.
We talk about the payroll percent to revenue number, and don't worry about that a whole lot right now, but we use that as what we call a proxy for cost of goods sold, because a lot of times you gotta, do some arithmetic and count there's several variable costs associated with cleaning a home. But the biggest one by far is your payroll expense. So over time, if you just track your payroll expense and divide it by the revenue that you generated off that payroll, it'll give you a percentage. And you can do some wonderful things with that to manage your costs. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
And I want to say one more thing about COGS. The reason why this one is next is because you see how this one says it varies as a percent of revenue. So that means it is a variable cost. It changes. And you have to really watch this number, because remember what Tom was saying. It could be 2%. It could be 80%, right? So that's really, since that number is so all over the place, you got to be paying really close attention to that number so that it doesn't get too high. Otherwise, you could be in trouble.
So once you've covered all of your variable costs, you've got your revenue, the money your customers paid you, all going into this bucket, and a big chunk of that's going to go to pay the people who did your, who actually cleaned the homes for you, along with the taxes, insurance, everything's associated with it. There's some money left over that's going to be trickling down here. And from an accounting standpoint, they call that gross profit. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with net profit, which is way down here.
So in gross profit, you see it's pointing at the arrow. It's the money that is going down into that next box. That's the gross profit. So I've heard people think that the gross profit is on the arrow above. Nope. Gross profit is after you pay all your COGS.
So all your gross profit winds up in this bucket down here. And this is your operating expenses. These are, we're going to call them your fixed expenses. They're roughly the same every month. And I'm saying roughly, your electric bill is not the same every month. And depending on what part of the country you're in and what month it is, it might be higher and lower. But in a relative sense, your rent is going to be the same every month.
Regardless of so this is the part how I think of it. Even if you don't clean anything, you're still going to pay these bills, right? So if you have a snow day and you don't go out there and you don't clean at all, guess what? Still paying your rent, still paying your phone bill, still paying your cable bill. Certain bills you're going to pay regardless.
Any cars that you're leasing, you're paying for them. Anything that you're paying for your advertising, your Google AdWords, you're still paying for those.
So this gets into a little bit of a tricky question for some people, Tom. Maybe you can help us with how you think about this. What about a fuel? Like for your car fuel. If I'm not cleaning any houses, I'm not paying any fuel, right? So would that be part of COGS or would that be part of my fixed expense?
Some of this gets down to the point where it's as much of an art as is a science, and it's what a preference is. There's a concept in accounting called materiality, where at the end of the day, some of these smaller expenses, for me, I would take gasoline and I would throw it in with the leased vehicles and the automobile, expense, other expenses, and just count that as an operating expense to fixed cost. It's going to vary a little bit month to month, but putting that in COGS doesn't help me make any different decisions in my business. I'm not going to make different decisions that are going to make me more profitable by going to the extra trouble to treat gasoline as a variable expense.
Now, if you know that you are spending too much money on gas, you are. Maybe you are driving, for 3 hours a day and you're just filling up your cars 3 times a week. All right, maybe in that case. But for the most part, it's not going to be a material amount. So most people put it in with operating expenses. Not everybody, though. I know some people that really want to keep it there and try to keep it really pure. So there is my point here is it's not cut and dried, y'all. It's not cut and dried. And that's why you have to understand it so you can make the decision for your company. The thing that I tell people in the MMA groups is pick which way you want to do it and be consistent so that your numbers can compare to themselves. The thing that really matters is you want to know what your COGS are this December compared to last December. But if you've got different things in your COGS and your operating expenses and you're moving those things around all the time, your numbers aren't apples to apples. So consistency matters. Pick and just keep doing that.
And regardless of how you handle some expenses in terms of treating it as fixed or variable, there's other techniques. There's techniques that happen after that decision that we're going to be showing you that would allow you to manage those expenses regardless of where they are on your income statement or profit and loss statement, which
don't worry about those yet.
We're going to show you that here shortly.
Yeah, don't worry about those yet. Yeah.
So you had the big bucket with all the money that came in, revenue, it all flowed down here. A good chunk of it went to cover the expenses to get the homes clean, paying your cleaning technicians, your cleaning professionals, and the taxes and insurance that goes with it. What was left over was gross profit. It flows here. From here, you pay the rent, the utilities, leased equipment, any advertising, any office help. We're talking about paying people. This is important that, if you've got most of the people in your payroll should be cleaning homes. And if they're cleaning homes, they're generating revenue and they're up here in cost of goods sold. If you're paying somebody to do your bookkeeping or to answer your telephone, then they aren't generating revenue. They're down here in operating expenses as well. So you got to pay those salaries. Okay.
So what about the business owner, Tom, that is working in their business? Okay. And do they decide based on if they're out cleaning houses?
That's a good question. If I'm the business owner and I'm out cleaning houses, if I want to get an accurate picture of, am I charging the right amount? Am I managing my business? Because there's a ton. Remember we talked about there's a ton of numbers that you can manage that you should be tracking and managing that affect revenue. There's a ton of numbers that affect your cost of goods sold, and we don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that here, but there's a lot of ways of measuring how good a job you're doing at managing your cost of goods sold. And if you're out personally cleaning homes yourself as the business owner, but aren't putting any salary and cost of goods sold, it will lead you to believe that you're really doing better than you are in terms of managing your schedule and your pricing and efficiency and productivity and all the things that will matter more as your business grows.
Yep. And we'll talk about that more now. If we try to talk about it now, it's going to take us kind of down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But the short answer is, if you're cleaning homes, then your money, the money that you are getting paid for cleaning homes, needs to be in this bucket too. Otherwise, you're going to have numbers that are a little bit wonky.
So the operating expenses wind up, the gross profit goes down here. They got to cover my operating expenses. And assuming that I had enough gross profit to do that, if I didn't, I'm losing money. I'm going to have to reach into my own pocket or borrow money from somewhere, do something to cover these expenses.
And I'm going to tell you how people get stuck, Tom, because they don't borrow money and they don't dig into their own pocket. What they do is they pay late. So if you can't afford to pay on time, that's the same thing, y'all. If you can't afford to pay your bill when it's due, you have to wait for more money to come in, then that means that there wasn't enough money there. Okay, so it's just because you got it paid doesn't mean that the money was actually there to pay it. That's what I mean by sometimes people are going bankrupt without even realizing it.
Yeah. So, this is a discussion we're going to be having over many weeks. Okay. Yep. Because there's a lot to this, but there's this whole other thing called a balance sheet where you owe people money and people owe you money. Sometimes, I'm sorry?
That's weeks down the road, Tom. Don't go there.
Okay. But
that's a thing.
We'll just leave it at that. Yeah. So if everything worked out okay, there's money left over that comes down here into this bucket, and that's profit.
Yeah.
And if there's no profit there, then you're not sustainable and you're not going to be in business, and you're not getting rewarded for taking the risk that you need to be taking as a business owner. If there's a little bit of profit there, okay, well, that means that we live to fight another day, but there needs to be enough profit there that you can actually run your business and grow your business so you can invest some of that profit into creating better jobs, creating better service for your clients. If you're just like down to basically breaking even each month, as a rule, it's not a fun place to be, regardless if you're, a cleaning professional or a client or an owner. So,
okay, Tom, we have an awesome question here. You're going to love this question. Leslie, yes.
Why even separate COGS and operating expenses other than for tax purposes? At the end of the day, they both come out resulting in profit. That is such a good question.
It is. It's the best question right there. It's so good.
And if you're finding value in this, if you come back next Thursday, we'll do a deep dive into that, because once you understand the answer to that question, your life changes in terms of how you look at your business. And I don't think I'm inclined to hyperbole, but it is an important concept.
Yeah. And it's a big answer. It's not just a tiny answer, but I do want to say one thing that kind of gives you like a glimmer of, okay, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. Is the COGS number, because it's variable, you have a lot of control over that number. There are a lot of levers there that you can change and do things. The other ones are much harder to change. Like if your rent is $5,000 a month, it's $5,000 a month. You don't have a lot of things you can change that are going to be able to happen quickly. I'll give you one perspective on this, Leslie, that
I think you'll find useful. Let's pretend that 50 cents out of every dollar you generate in revenue up here goes out to cover the payroll and taxes related to the people that are cleaning for you. And let's pretend down here your operating expense, which is fixed, keep it easy, say it's $1,000, okay? So that means I need $1,000 flowing down into this bucket to break even.
We can't see your cursor. If you're pointing at something, Tom, we can't see it.
I'm pointing at the wrong place. Wow, okay, sorry guys. So I need $1,000 here. I need $1,000 flowing down here to break even. And 50 cents out of every dollar is going to pay my people. That means I know that I need $2,000 up here flowing down here. So 1,000 covers COGS, and I got 1,000 coming here, and I break even. I also know that after I make my $2,000, I've broken even, and for every dollar that comes in, bang, here 50 cents flows down here, and since these are covered, that 50 cents flows down here to me. So when I break my COGS out separately from my operating expenses, I can very quickly look at QuickBooks, for instance, and determine how many homes do I need to clean in order to break even. And for every extra home I clean after that, how much money is actually going into profit. And once you know that, you can set goals, you can set expectations, you can get everybody in your organization working towards doing the things that they need to do, contributing to these various boxes to grow and build profit. But it is hugely important to be able to break those numbers out separately. We'll be talking about that a lot in future weeks, because you know what? My experience, we've coached a lot of people over the years, Liz.
Yeah.
The large majority of them do not do it. Here's an example, and Liz, I borrowed this from some of your material in MMA.
Yeah.
So think of this as a P&L statement, and QuickBooks can do this for you. And next week we'll do a deeper dive into this and kind of show you how this would look in a bigger sense. But we're quickly running out of time. But here's that top bucket, revenue. Here's the next bucket, cost of goods sold. In this example, it's 55% of revenue. And we'll do a lot of things with this percentage later on. But for the moment, we'll just accept it that we got 55,000 in COGS. So you subtract the cost of goods sold from your revenue. And this is that gross profit number that's floating down to, and I'm in the wrong place again. The 100,000 minus the 55 cost of goods sold. This gives me my gross profit of 45. So in this case, I had 100,000 here. Bang, 55% goes out to cost of goods sold, which is 45,000 flowing down to here. What's my next number? Operating expenses, 25,000. So after my 25,000 is gone, you covered all of that. I got 20 grand floating down here into net profit. Since my gross profit number was 45%, I know for every dollar that I generate after my break-even point, 45 cents of that is going straight down here, because this is gone. I've taken this out. I don't have to worry about my operating expenses anymore for that month. Once they're covered, you kind of skip over that. It goes straight from COGS down to net profit, because this is paid for.
Yeah, because remember, they're fixed. Means that it's just a certain amount, and once they're paid, you don't have to pay any more from that box. There's nothing else to pay, and all the rest of the money goes to net profit. Can you go back to that example again, Tom, real quick? All right, we only have 1 minute, so I just want to say this real quick. So one thing that is super nice about this is you only need 3 numbers to be able to get here, to figure this out. A lot of times people think, oh my gosh, this is so hard. There's so many numbers. Really, you don't. The revenue, how much money did people pay you? What's the total amount for whatever time period you're looking at? What's the total amount that you paid out for COGS, right? The cost of services provided, like Denise said, which is awesome. And then what were your total expenses? What were your total operating expenses that you paid out? All of that. You put those 3 numbers in, The rest of this stuff fills in for itself. Your percent to revenue fills out, your gross profit, your net profit, and now you know where you're sitting. So 3 numbers, y'all. It's not as hard as it seems. Now you do have to know where to find these numbers, and we're going to talk about that, I'm guessing, next Thursday, right, Tom?
Or some Thursday after that.
Yeah, Thursday.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Okay, guys, we are at the top of the hour. I'm sorry. I hope you guys found this useful, though. And if so, give us some feedback. If this is a good use of this time, we'll do more of it. If there's some things that we could be doing differently, would certainly like that feedback as well.
Okay. What is the COGS? So the COGS consist of, and we'll talk about that a little bit more again. The COGS consist of mostly wages. So unloaded, I like to just think of it as unloaded, just your wages, because there's other stuff that you can put on there, but just wages to get started is a good starting point.
Yes. And we'll have examples next week. We'll dig deeper into this and talk about how, whatever accounting system, if you're using QuickBooks, how to set that up in a way to be able to track your numbers so they look like this. And then we'll talk more about what you do with those numbers. And in subsequent weeks, we'll be talking about, okay, I know what these numbers are, but what do I do in my business to change these numbers in a way that would allow me to be more profitable? And that's where it really starts getting fun.
So Shannon, if you're a solo and you're the only person cleaning, then how would you do that, Tom? Because it wouldn't just be your wages, because that could conceivably include profit. We might need to answer that next week. We're out of time.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll get with that next week. Sorry to kind of leave you hanging here, but we said up front that we were going to go slow with this, and I think that's the way that we need to do it.
We'll hit you up next Thursday with that, Shannon. We'll make a note, make sure that we get that answer first off.
So we'll see you next Monday with Sharon Tinberg, and we're going to have a good week next week, and we'll pick this up next Thursday.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Going into the new year, y'all.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.